Hello, and we're waiting for a few people to join us and kind of file into the room. Today, there is a little poll happening right now. So on your way in, if you want to vote on how confident you are in being able to write a successful entry, that would be great. And we can just kind of hear your responses to that. And I guess it's just over to me to kind of start saying hello and welcome to the RTPI's How to Win Awards webinar. And thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Ayo Abbas. I'm going to quickly click this off my own screen. I'm going to say very confident. Sorry. I am your host, Ayo Abbas, and I'm a marketing consultant from Abbas Marketing. Today, this webinar will run as follows. So first up, we'll do a short intro to the RTPI Awards for Planning Excellence by Lucy. And then we'll have a panel discussion from a judge's perspective and a winner's perspective. And then finally, I'll be sharing some hints and tips on how to develop an award-winning entry. We will also be taking your questions. So if you do have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A tab on the webinar platform, and we'll get to those at the end.
Okay, so before we start, there's a few webinar housekeeping notes I just want to share with you. We do have a closed caption functionality that's available in the top right of your screen. You can turn it on and off as you wish. We are expecting a seamless webinar with no technical issues today. But if we do experience an issue, stay in the webinar. We'll sort it out in the back end as soon as we possibly can. If you're experiencing the technical issue, then refresh your browser or leave and rejoin with the link we sent you. Alternatively, use a different browser, and sometimes that helps. But as Ayo just mentioned, we'd very much like to hear your questions and your thoughts, so please do add them into the Q&A box as we go along. You can upvote people's questions if someone else has asked something that you want to know too. We'll be doing a couple of polls. Do join in. It helps us understand your needs a little bit better. And just to let you know, we are recording the webinar, so you will receive a copy of this after the session. So, the RTPI Awards for Planning Excellence 2024 has opened. Their awards are all about showcasing and celebrating best plans, people and projects. And now we're in our 47th year. We would like to recognise and highlight the positive contributions our planning professionals make in the communities they serve around the world. There are 15 categories for the awards, Planning Excellence, which were initially judged in the nations and regions. The winners and the highest scoring projects are then put forward to the national awards, which we held later on this year. Each category is designed to showcase your best work between 2022 and 2023. For young planners, choose your best achievements over the recent years. And your submissions are made via our online portal Avisio. And we've tried to make it as easy and fair as possible for you to submit an entry. Entry is also free, by the way. The judges for the awards are highly experienced planners from the industry, and they volunteer their time both regionally, nationally, and in the nations. So their judging process that we go through starts, as I mentioned, in nations and regions. Once the judges have read your submissions, undertaken some site visits and interviews, the shortlist will be announced, and then the award celebrations will take place around the nations and regions. Once the nations and regions finish their celebrations and the winners are announced, the winners and the highest scoring project groups will go through to the national awards. And then the judging process starts again. The closing date for the awards is the 15th of March. So you've got plenty of time. And with this webinar, I am absolutely positive you're going to submit a fantastic entry. So over to you, Ayo.
Great. So now to kick off our panel section. So let me introduce our guests for today. First up, we have Catriona Riddell, who was a judge for the 2023 Awards for Planning Excellence. Catriona is an independent consultant providing support on a range of spatial planning issues. She specialises in strategic planning and working with local authorities across England. She's also a fellow of the Royal Town Planning Institute and a member of the England Policy Committee. In 2022, Catriona was awarded an honorary doctorate from Oxford Brookes University and was one of the Planner magazine's Women of Influence, which is great. And on to our other panellist, who is Joshua Singh, who won both the RTPI National and West Midlands Young Planner of the Year Awards 2023. He is currently planning regeneration team leader at Sandwell Metropolitan Borough Council, focused on accelerating the delivery of £500 million plus of regeneration-led investment across a £2.9 billion regeneration and growth pipeline. So, with that, let's head on to our panel discussion. First up, can we start with you, Catriona? Can you tell us a bit about how long you've been judging and I guess why you actually wanted to get involved?
Yeah. I mean, I've only been doing the RTPI Awards for the last year, but I have been a judge on planning awards for about the last 8 years. I keep coming back because not only is it really exciting just to see all the different things that have been happening, but I think more recently it's been a necessary part of just keeping motivation going for a lot of people. You know, it's been quite a hard time planning wise over the last few years. It's not had a great press, and it's fantastic when you actually look at all the awards and and see and celebrate how fantastic planners are doing out there. And it is always inspirational, and I love when I walk around and suddenly come across something and I think I've seen that before, and then I realize it was one of the entries, whether it won or not, I remember it. And for me, that's what's great, is actually seeing it happen and come to life. So celebrating what planners do is why I do it and give my time up.
So over to you, Joshua. So what did winning the West Midlands and National Awards mean to you? I guess as an individual, but also for your team and the work you do with your local authority.
Yeah, that's a great question. Firstly, it was fantastic to be recognised at kind of the regional level to begin with, winning West Midlands Young Planner of the Year. But on a national level, it's been absolutely fantastic for me personally. The opportunities which have been opened, the doors which have opened, just from being recognised as kind of a young planner leading at the forefront of delivering regeneration in Sandwell, but also that's impacting on a national level. It's been fantastic. Been great to talk to people at the very top of the industry in the built environment, have the opportunity to represent young planners and start to get over what it is we're looking to achieve as a professional body, youngsters coming through through the profession, but also just to be able to talk about shaping the future. So it's been fantastic. And as for the team, it's great. I urge everyone to look at how they can how they can put in for the awards, depending on what project or what proposals they're leading on, because it just gives a bit of kudos. If you go through the process, it just empowers you as a team. And I think I found that with my team, that it's empowered us to kind of just keep pushing forward and keep looking at how we can deliver best practice in the things we do for the communities around us.
That's fantastic. And sort of in terms of like opening doors, what sort of things did you end up doing? What kind of things has it led to?
The first fantastic opportunity was the President's Dinner, which Sue Bridge invited me just before Christmas. That was a fantastic opportunity where we had technical issue, where we had where there was invitation was sent out to the lead presidents across the built environment profession, so Reba, Rix, amongst a number of others, and to sit at that table and hear the debate and discussion around where we'd like to take the future of the built environment profession, and also to be able to contribute to that as a young planner was a fantastic opportunity. And I think that's something that we're looking to do as an RTPI this year, is put together almost a joint manifesto from the different institutions to take to the incoming government. So here are our priorities for the future, and I'm hoping to lead on the younger voice or the younger members of the profession and trying to pull that together. And it was also great to go down to the President's inauguration last week, I think it was, hosted at Trinity House. And that again was a fantastic opportunity to kind of mingle with some of the leading planners, the leaders of the profession, and it's just been great to have that kind of opportunity.
It's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. And I guess in some ways that answers how that kind of the winning the award has benefited you. I mean, are there other ways it's kind of impacted you personally?
I think it's just given me a sense of confidence. I mean, everyone knows me, I'm quite a confident individual, but to have that acknowledgement that the work that I do personally, but also putting on the table kind of the work that I've been leading on in Sandwell and what the team have been contributing toward, it just gives you that sense of empowerment as a young planner. You know, you realise that, as Catriona said, that we've been through a bit of a darker period in our profession recently with misinformation and the amount of criticism leveled at planning. But actually, if you look at what's happening across the country, there are some fantastic schemes, fantastic individuals doing amazing things. And I think the awards gives you that opportunity to really showcase, you know, what it is you're about individually, but also what it is you do in your region. And I think that's been great for me, just to empower, you know, the vision I've got, what I think I can achieve at Sandwell and West Midlands is been recognised as to what we've done, but also where we're going. That's a real sense of pride for me as well.
Fantastic.
Ayo, can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Just on the back of that, Joshua, I mean, did you get was there a celebration from chief execs, councillors and things? You know, was it recognised internally within the council beyond the planning department?
Yes, it was. I mean, at this point, I will just add that Jen Langford, who's one of my managers, she won it back in 2019, and at that point, it was recognised Jenna's achievements of winning West Midlands and national young planner. But it was, I think, it's been part of our organisational narrative as a council to kind of reflect upon successes within the council and successes within teams. So I kind of hit a bit of a sweet spot where our comms, you know, were jumping all over it, to be honest with you. So I think everyone was. I was on the you know, the homepage of the council's web intranet for quite a while last year.
Did you make it into the local press though?
Not as of yet, but I'm encouraged to hear that. I think there will be a few things coming out this year, but not the local press. No. So, I don't think our local newspaper celebrates positivity, so I'll be getting it. Honestly, but it was good. It was good timing. You know, I think it's been celebrated. You know, I managed to get up in front of the chief executive and the cabinet, so I was praised there, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's been really good. It's been really well received.
Fantastic. So now let's move on to kind of putting together an entry, which I know is generally the hardest bit. So for you, Catriona, when do you feel is the best time to submit an entry for the RTPI Awards?
Yeah, really good question. I suspect, you know, Joshua would say it applies to whether you're putting yourself forward or your team or a proposal, you know, proposed development. It doesn't really matter, and getting that magic time is really important. I've seen some that I thought this could be really good, but you're maybe a year too early. You can't really see. And I've also seen some actually, I think, that have just come too late. Somehow. So actually just thinking about what it is thinking about the entry and what you're going to write in the entry should help you determine whether you're going for at the right time. I have seen some that are submitted that seem to be submitted every year, sort of a development that's submitted sort of every year at its stage. And you know, there's some, I guess, judges that would see that time and time again and think, well, are you just submitting it for the sake of it? You know, so be careful. Put it at the time that you think is right. You shouldn't have to submit a bid every year on a big development just to make the point. You know, you've got to have enough there to be able to judge it properly. Yeah.
Now, I'm guessing if you're resubmitting it, what's new? It's like it's thinking about where that story's actually gone on, right? It's kind of what's happened in that past year.
Absolutely. You know, these awards, there is a tendency, I think, for some just to, as I said, just put in an entry for the sake of it. I think I think you can tell the difference between people that are really proud of what they're doing and see the reason why they're putting it forward, or as a team or whatever. And you can tell the difference, I think. I'm not saying don't put in your entries. Please continue to put in your entries, but they do stand out. You can tell ones that have really thought about their entry and why they're doing it.
Fantastic. And in terms of individual awards and the one when you were putting yours together, I mean, how did you put yours together, and when was the best time to submit for you?
Yeah, again, good question. So I was basically told I was going to put something in.
Who told you?
So we're actually at the 2022 Summer Ball in the West Midlands. So we just won. A colleague of mine had won an award for the Smethwick to Birmingham Framework Corridor. So we sat at the dinner table, and basically they said, next year you're going for young planner. We think it's time for you to go for it. And for me personally, I think that was the right time. I felt like I had a lot to showcase, and I was at a stage now in my career as a young chartered member where I'd done a lot of work, and I wanted to put that on the table, to justify the entry, really. So it was a combination of, I started off the submission, and then went to again a couple of my managers who put their spin on it in terms of it was a nomination by the council, so by my planning managers. But it was a combined effort in terms of me wanting to stress where I think if I was submitting it, but also from their perspective shaping it as a nomination from the council.
Brilliant. And I guess in terms of good entry, Catriona, what do you think makes a good entry? Are there particular things that people need to do or to bring out?
Yeah, there are basic things like making sure that you're in the right category. There's nothing to stop you putting an entry into more than one category, but make sure it fits. And again, looking at the criteria carefully and making sure your entry fits that criteria is really important. There's some basic things like that. But for me, what stands out is I know there's some sort of restrictions on the amount of visuals and things like that for good reason. But something, I'm a planner. I think like most planners, we see things. We are visual people, so the words on the paper are really important. But really thinking carefully about your 2 or 3 photographs or anything else you're putting in is important, because that as a judge, that's the first thing I turn to, because I want to see it and then go back and the words then make more sense to me.
Yeah.
I know not everybody works like that, but that's certainly how I would judge it. So good visuals, I think, getting the words right, you thinking yourself, why as a if you were judging it, what would you look for? Why would you stand out? What makes it different? And one thing particularly I look at is this something that could be applied elsewhere? Is this good practice? Is this sufficiently new, different, special that others will look at it and say, that's really, really good. I love what you've done. And that applies to, reuse of an old building. One that I saw recently, I was in King's Cross, and it's the old gas development, and it's fantastic. And that was one of the ones that I judged, and I had only seen it on paper, but when I saw that, I remember thinking, oh my, that is just fantastic. Who would have thought? And I've seen it last weekend, in fact 2 weekends ago, for the first time in real life. And so for things like that you just think, I would never have thought about that, or that's different, but good, but just and I think this applies to teams, whether it's consultants, whether it's local authority teams and things like that, is are they doing things that, I think Milton Keynes was one of my favourites last year because of the things they were doing in terms of recruitment and retention, and it was a really big issue. It still is a big issue, but particularly when we were thinking about that, a lot of RTPI and others were thinking about that. And when I saw what they were doing, I was thinking, yeah, I can see people looking at that and thinking that's a really good idea. We could do the same. So good practice that is applicable to others. But then, of course, you have the standout ones that you're not going to be able to replicate. They're just special.
Fantastic. And any tips from you in terms of putting together a good individual award, Josh, that helped you in terms of crafting it?
Yeah, I think Kat reflects it as well. For me, it was an opportunity to put everything on the table. What we'd like to see, is the best of what individuals are doing in their regions. So I think just be confident about not overselling, but selling what you're doing as an individual and how you're contributing to your region and what the outcomes are. Yeah. I think we're very much I wouldn't say insular profession, but we sometimes don't shout enough about the positivity and the great stuff which is happening, which I alluded to earlier. So this is an opportunity for individuals and young planners across the country to really showcase what it is they're leading on. And I think we sometimes don't realise what level that some of our younger members of the profession, the institute, are doing. And it's only through this type of celebratory awards event where we can really showcase and highlight that. So I think really focusing on what it is you've done recently, drawing upon any experience, any charity work, voluntary work, any outreach work, but what are the outcomes? I think that's a critical thing we'd like to see this year is how have you made a difference as an individual? How have you contributed to your team making a difference? And then just embrace it. For me, it was quite nice to look back and go, actually, I've done quite a lot over the last couple of years, and I can see what difference it's made. But having this kind of reflective piece to do within the awards submission really helped me understand that a bit better.
Was there any kind of what resources did you look back over to kind of piece it all together? Because sometimes it can be quite hard to remember what you did like a year ago, 2 years ago. Was there anything you did, do you reckon? Or
I think fortunately for me, we've been, we secured quite a fair bit of funding, just under 70 million for Towns Fund for Sandwell back in 2020. So we as a team have been working on some big projects on the ground. So I had kind of a wealth of current information, current level of work I was doing to draw upon. But then I also just picked up on the fact that we won, Sandwell won back in 2014 Local Planning Authority of the Year, the inaugural one, and it's 10 years since we won it last. Just put that out there.
The next award.
But just drawing upon all that kind of past experience, which all contributed to how I am as a planner now, and I think that really helps me understand where I've come from, and I think I reflected that probably in my submission. Actually, there's a clear transition from being a junior officer all the way through to the position I'm in now, and that chartership, becoming a chartered planner really helped propel me to that next level as well.
Okay.
But then I'd say, also use people around you. It's if you're getting nominated by within work or even as an individual, put your submission together with someone else. There's a tip there, isn't there, in terms of actually bounce your ideas off another person. It's not just you as an individual. You can have those discussions with mentors or your managers within there to support you through the process, and obviously get the best out of what they think from your perspective, from their perspective. Sorry, to contribute to your submission. I think that's a good point there. I think.
And I think as well, when it comes to you as an individual, it can be easy to not see what other people see as well.
That's actually that thing, that kind of that piece of discussing with someone else who knows you maybe better than you know yourself in terms of the work you've done over the years in some respect.
Sorry, Catriona, did you want to add that?
No, I was just I was reflecting on the fact Josh was talking about his authority putting lots of entries in, and I think the proportion of local authorities that put anything in, any submissions in any category continues to be very small. Mm-hmm. It's a cultural thing, isn't it? I think where authorities just don't tend to celebrate, and they don't realise actually it's time consuming, yes, but it is the value that you get out of it in terms of celebration internally is fantastic, but for others to know how well you're doing. And I would really urge many, many more local authorities where individual as teams offer developments or whatever to put an entry in, because it is, again, back to the morale issue. Boy, do we need it. We need some pepping up here. And I think local authorities, I really urge them to think about putting something in for this. It's a great experience apart from anything else, but just a celebration of everything that the is doing.
And just to echo what Catriona said, from a local authority perspective, it's a way to showcase the regeneration, the planning which is taking place in your local area, but also adds to your team's kind of narrative. We don't put that many submissions in, but when we go for them, we go with them with we're obviously going to try and win this, but it's for a reason. It's timed within what we're trying to deliver, and where we've got to a stage of a certain framework or master plan. Once, for instance, we won. Shouldn't really be pushing this, but the Planning Awards 2023 last year, not the RTPI, but the Planning Awards. We won the award for plan making for West Bromwich Master Plan. Again, the reason we went for that, obviously, because it was a fantastic vision, a master plan, but we're then thinking about, well, actually, we're going to go out to develop a procurement, we're looking for investment. Having an award-winning master plan in your back pocket helps frame the direction the council and the direction the team is going. So it adds to your thinking, and that comes back to planning and planning those next stages in terms of what you're looking to deliver as well.
Yeah, definitely. It builds investor confidence in your place, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a really good point, actually. That's a really good point. It gives you more robustness for your actual approach and what you're actually doing. That's a really good point. So, Catriona, in terms of what kind of mistakes or what things do you feel people often make, errors or things that they shouldn't really be doing? So making sure you're in the right category was one that you mentioned earlier. Is anything else where you kind of see it and go, why have we done this?
Well, I guess, I mean, the biggest mistake, I think, is to be blasé. I think is probably the best thing, is to think I'm just doing this for the fact that I need to do it, and actually not thinking how. And I think it's I think Joshua was talking about outcomes. It's the so what value. And I've seen some entries that they quite often don't make the short list anyway, but they are just, you just think, so what? Well, why have you bothered? So actually, and I know we were talking earlier about planning all being about storytelling, and I think when you put a good award in, it's the story, what gives it heart, I guess, in terms of what makes it different, what gives it heart, why have you bothered to spend any time on this? And I think you can tell the ones that are that haven't really thought about that. So I think whoever puts your entry in, whether you use somebody externally to put the entry in, or within your own organisation or personally, I think really think about that so what question about why you're bothering to spend the time. What is it that you are celebrating? And that should be very clear within the first few words. And, you know, some of them are very articulate, very well presented, but that heart doesn't come across. It's too bland. It doesn't sell it because you don't feel why you've bothered to take the time to put it in. So really think about the words, and I guess that goes back to the visuals again. You know, don't just stick a couple of photographs in or a site plan. Really think about you've only got a small amount of visuals to play with. Make it really work for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And in terms of, I guess that covers in a way how to make it easy. How can entrants make it easy for you to judge and do what you need to do? Is there any other kind of things that we can do?
I like to see, I like to, within the first sort of couple of paragraphs, understand why they're bothering in the first, back to that point, you know, it should be very clear in the first couple of paragraphs about why but why this submission stands out. It's one of the things I think I've found over the years is I try not to, if I'm looking at entries, they obviously come in order, and by the time you think you get to the last entry, you get a bit fed up. So I tend to go over them in different orders each time, and I don't just do it once. Trust me, I don't just look at it, the ones that have got the higher number and end up with the less time. I will go back over them again, but I will do it in a different order so that you know, you're coming at it with fresh eyes. So yeah, so just having something at the as a judge right early on that you can see why that entry has been why that submission has been entered.
Fantastic. Is there anything else you wanted to add about entries, Josh, that you think people should think about when they're putting them in?
I'm just making notes, to be honest.
It's not your briefing session.
Yeah, just taking some notes. Yeah. No, I think Kat covers it really well there. From an individual point of view, I think, again, just as you would through the kind of the APC and the narrative from the RTPI, is just very clearly look at the guidance and what questions are being asked, and align your responses, you know, to the criteria. It seems like a simple thing to say, but it really is critical that you look at what the judge is, what we're looking for, and craft your narrative, that story you want to tell, to what it is that we're looking for in terms of the criteria. And again, just be bold about what it is you're putting in there. I think, again, I mean, for me, it was a very reflective opportunity, and I think it's great if people really bring out that passion. And that was something that a couple of judges said to me afterwards. You know, we could really see your passion for planning through your submission, but also through the interview panel. So let's not forget, for Young Planner, you've got a regional panel presentation, and then if you get through to the national, you've also got a panel presentation there to do. So you can also got that opportunity to really showcase what you're about in terms of the questions that are asked there as well. So just give it your all. You know, as Catriona says, you can really see on the paper those entries that have given some thought and really crafted a good narrative and a good submission. And same when you're a young planner, you've got your presentation, don't just leave it to last minute. You know, really think about how it is you can showcase what it is you're about through the questions that have been asked to you through the presentation.
Yeah, I think, sorry, just on that, the criteria is so important, isn't it? I mean, it is amazing how, I mean, last year, I think we ruled out one because they didn't meet the criteria. It was great. It was a great submission if you were looking at it without any criteria around it, but it simply didn't meet the criteria. And then we had one that was in the wrong category, and you can't make a judgment call and shift them into another category. You've got to make sure you've put it in the right category, and you take that criteria. The criteria is just so important. It's there for a reason. Yeah,
use it as your guide. That's often when I'm putting together an entry, that's often what I use. But I was also thinking that in terms of the narrative, like you said, carrying that through into your presentation if you're going for an individual award, but also if you're doing a site visit, it's another thing. How you the words you use on that site visit, and also how you take the judges around that site should tell that story, and it's a way of actually building on your entry. And I think those are the things that people can often overlook. But for me, that narrative and threading it all the way through is the key.
Yeah, and getting somebody, the site visits are interesting because they don't always, it's quite difficult getting the judges to fit in, especially, I mean, I'm in the South East Awards, so it's a very big region. And so you have to try and ensure that there's judges that can go locally to see these. But if you're not familiar with that area, again, the visuals are so important and the words on the paper are so important so that you can imagine what that looks like if you're not going to have the advantage of a site visit.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you very much. Okay, so my final questions for you both. So first up, I'm going to you, Catriona. So why do you give up your time to judge? Because it's all the judging is done by volunteers.
Yeah, well, I guess it's partly it's nice to be asked. It's a real privilege to be asked to do it in the first place, especially when you're talking about the RTPI. You know, there's many planners, I'm sure, that would be happy to do it. So it's a real privilege. But I guess it's back down to your first question about, it's about, I work for myself, so I'm an independent consultant. So I don't have the advantage of, I work in different local authorities, but I don't have the advantage of working within a big team and seeing everybody putting applications together or plans together and things like that. So for me, it's a reminder every year of why I went into planning. And it's also a reminder of how amazingly wide-ranging planning is. You can have, it's not just about the individual categories, it's incredible the contribution planning and planners make to places on every level, from the smallest level, from a team level, from an individual level, from a big consultants and developers level. It's exciting actually seeing all these entries coming forward, and it's sometimes a bit disappointed if you get allocated a category. And I remember last year I was given a category, and I can't even remember what it was. But I was sort of, I don't really want to do that. I think it was heritage actually, and I was thinking, I'm not. No, I know. I was thinking, I don't really want to do this one. And then the minute I started judging it, I thought, thank God I am doing this one. You get, for me, I get sort of pigeonholed into plan making. And it's just a real privilege to see the wide-ranging variety of things that are going on in our profession, and to be part of that. So it's just a real privilege to be part of it. So I give my time up for that.
That's brilliant. And so, Josh, what would you say to a young planner or an individual looking at going for one of the individual awards in the awards this year? What would you say to them?
I think if you feel the time is right, definitely put your application in. I think be bold about what it is you want to showcase in terms of the role you've been doing, the work you've been doing. I think be really confident about it. I mean, at no point really was I nervous about any of the young planner category. I just saw it as more of a, I was excited. I was excited to get shortlisted. I was excited to pitch in front of people. I just saw it as an opportunity to really, showcase what I'm about, but also what my team and what we've been doing in Sandwell it comes from there. So I think just, really give it a good crack, I think. And it is quite energy draining once you start going through the process. If you give a lot to it, you will find that it saps a bit of energy out of you throughout the year. I think. Yeah, I did. By the end of the year, I felt like that.
But you won.
Hey. I did. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I did. I think. Yeah, I did bribe the kids to give me some more energy. I said, if I win, I'll buy you a Nintendo Switch for Christmas. I think that may have swayed it. I think that positive energy from them pushed me over the edge, I think. But in all seriousness, just enjoy it. It's as Catriona said, we don't celebrate young planners enough, and I think we've got a real opportunity now to, it takes a planner work that we did last year as an RTPI, that whole media narrative campaign. Let's build on that, and I think we use the awards really to showcase the best, really, of what it is that we're achieving as a profession, as individuals. And it's always good to get a table at the awards as well. So I'll throw that in.
There you go, throw that in. Anyway, thank you so much for the discussion to both of you. And you're going to come back a bit later on for the Q&A session. And now we're going to kind of move on to some tips on how to create winning awards, so which I'm going to share, which is going to build on some of what we've discussed today. 1 second. Oh. Okay, so tip 1. So like we said earlier, it's very much about taking time to understand the entry guidance and the criteria. So that's a really, really important point. So before you start drafting, make sure you read and understand the entry process, the submission content requirements, and any additional information that you may need to source. And you can also check the kind of eligibility, which I can't say, criteria for your project and that you meet it. And if you are entering the same project in multiple categories, make sure you tailor each submission to the category at hand. And the criteria and guidance for each category can be found after creating an account on the online portal as well. Okay, tip 2 is around focusing on demonstrating outstanding planning. The RTPI Awards are all about celebrating planning excellence, so please center your responses on the planning related elements of what you do. Remember, it's about finding outstanding examples of planning that really kind of go above the norm and exceed the norm. So was there something that was unusual, an unusual challenge that you addressed on the project? Did you turn a difficult situation around by delivering good planning services? Was there a novel solution or something innovative that you introduced, that you developed, that kind of helped the project to progress? So your submission should emphasize the valuable role that planning played in the successful realization of the scheme, or in terms of what you do, and be supported by evidence, which is the important part. In terms of tip 3, it's very much about, like we said, it's about sharing those challenges, those things you had to overcome. Not everything can go right. It's often about understanding that this is about real problem solving. And actually, when we're dealing with communities and what we do and society, it's a much bigger challenge. And there is a lot more knottier aspects in terms of what we do, and they deserve to be recognized. So don't shy away from sharing that. Understand what it is that you learn from it. Understand how you influence the outcome, be it a team on the project or the community, and also really show how your thinking and your input help to add value. Tip 4, which is what we said earlier, which is very much about thinking about the so what, and I even said so what in capitals as well. So think about, it's a great technique to use to kind of drill down into the real value of your entry. So when you do make a statement, ask yourself, so what? So what does that mean for the planning permission? profession. So what does that mean for the communities we serve? So what does that mean for society at large? And start to kind of understand the impact of what you do. And that's what you want to try and reflect in your entry. You know, what does that mean? What was my impact? And another tip is about finding a balance between being concise. You do have word count, but also using every word wisely. So very much about how can you pack in the evidence? So you make a statement, and then you back that up with the supporting kind of evidence of how you made it happen, what you did, to kind of just give it, I guess, more of that kind of gravitas so that the judges understand really what it is that you brought to the table and why that entry should stand out. So, I mean, the other thing to think about is the fact that, as Catriona said, judges are marking multiple entries. It takes them time and they are volunteering. So make every word count and use your word limits properly. Tip 5, which we touched on earlier, which is about using the judging criteria, understanding what that is. And quite often I actually use it as a checklist at the end. So it's very much about looking at the judging criteria. What are they looking for? What are they scoring us on? What are they assessing? Understand that and actually go through at the end and go, have I hit those buttons? Have I provided evidence? Does it cover off what they're looking for? Because if you tick all those buttons, that's how you're going to get through to the shortlist. Okay, tip 7, which is around making it easy to judge. There's lots about judging. So it's just, again, about thinking about the format. Is it clear? You know, have you made it easy for the judges to read? Is it lots of huge blocks of text, or can you use shorter bullet points and ways to break up the words? You know, and also you have to kind of think about, you know, is there too much jargon in there? Or have you made too many assumptions about how much the judges will know? I mean, like Catriona's example about doing heritage, she's not a heritage expert. So if she's looking at those and you're using lots of terms that would specifically talk about heritage, she might not have understood it. So it's just thinking about that people might be covering sectors and categories that aren't their area of specialization. So how can you make it easy for them to judge and mark and give you those points, basically? And again, building on that is around not assuming that the judges know all the local circumstances. So if you're talking about a particular area, there might be certain challenges in your area. It could be transport related, it could be education related. There could be loads of different factors that impact what's being done in that region. So again, it's about thinking of those issues and how you can include those in your entry, because what you want to do is give the judges enough information so they can judge your entry from what you put in front of them. So make sure you highlight those special circumstances in which you had to operate and why those circumstances led to the solution that you provided or what you did. And finally, my last tip is around making sure you double check your submission. So again, it's just about being as professional as you can. Give yourself plenty of time to do your submission. Last minute ones always look it in the end, don't they? Whereas when you look back and you go, I could have done better. So make sure your entry reflects, you know, the amount of work you put into the project itself. And before you submit, make sure you read it thoroughly, or even better, approach someone else you trust to read it on your behalf, and make sure they understand what you're saying and that there's no important information missing or any ambiguity as well. I mean, for me, I do that mock judging criteria and give myself marks, or get someone else to mark it independently, and to make sure you hit all the buttons that you want to do. Anyway, that's it for my tips. So those are 9 tips so that you can kind of get started with your award. And if you want some more useful resources, you can find more out on the RTPI website, which is rtpi.org.uk/excellence. And there's an entry link there. There's details on the categories. There's key dates. And there's also a how to win guide, which is also useful. And if you have any questions, you can email awards@rtpi.org.uk and they'll get back to you as well. Now it's over to the Q&A. Brilliant. Hiya, Lucy. Hi.
I know. My dog was barking.
That's all right.
So we have got some good questions coming through in the Q&A. Can you?
Okay. Hold on. We're a moment till looking. Is it published? Yes, we do. Oh, there's loads. I wasn't looking here. Okay, so first question we have are, there are a number of categories for the Young Planner of the Year award to write about in an entry. And in brackets, policy understanding, range of achievements, enthusiasm / originality, teamworking, commitment to CPD, and voluntary activities, and being a role model. Generally speaking, are there any of these that carry more weighting than others in favour of winning the Young Planner Awards? That's a good question.
It's a very good question.
Do
you want to go, Josh?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think for me, when I approached it, was just making sure that I hit everything and weaved it all in. I suppose for a judging question, really, as to whether there is. I don't think there would be.
No. You're correct. There is no weighting.
I think the best answers will probably reflect all of those, and the best young planners are probably working within all those different segments. And I think we want to see how everyone's contributing to each of those individual areas within the criteria.
So, but if you were particularly strong on one area, because I can imagine there are some people who are like, I'm really doing a lot of things around volunteering. I don't think that's a reason to not apply, though, is it?
No, not at all. No. 100% no. I think it's about looking back and see, well, where have you contributed to some of those? Have you supported a planning application where you've engaged with your planning policy team for a very detailed application or discussion, and what's the outcome been from that discussion? I think look at how you can meet all the criteria.
Yeah, I think also just on that one as well, looking at it from a judge's perspective, again, you're looking for standout things. So, and you're not expected, especially we're talking about young planners. So we're not talking about people that are well in their career and have had an opportunity to do a massive amount. So. That would be a really tall order. Really,
you'd be like, I don't have time to do my day job.
I've been doing this for 30 odd years, and I've still never done a planning application. So, put my hands up to that. But we are looking for things that stand out, whatever category. And I think to put a strong sort of submission forward entry for a young planner, just have that real conviction that you are doing it for the right reasons, and back to the earlier one, at the right time.
I think a bigger piece of the criteria, what's not mentioned, but is passion. And I think that naturally comes across with some of the submissions. I think, and if you show your passion as well, that will carry a lot of weight in terms of the judges, because again, we want to see people are passionate about planning, and that will generally come across in the submissions and when you're face to face, I think, with judges.
Fantastic, great response. On to our next question. So, how can entries successfully address the category they have applied for in their submission? For example, the questions for excellence in planning for heritage and culture are exactly the same as the questions for excellence in planning for communities, larger schemes of 50 homes or more. So how can you set out the heritage benefits of your scheme? And is this actually included in the scoring criteria, as none of the questions actually relate to this? Is that more you question, Lucy?
Shall I take that one? Yes, we have changed this year. So there is a differentiation between the criteria for the projects, so that the heritage questions are different to the planning and communities, which are different to the other project questions. So whereas in previous years, you've been able to maybe apply your project entry and then apply to different project entries because they're very similar. This year you have to be very careful, have a look at the criteria, make sure that you read it thoroughly, because there are going to be differences and nuances that have changed.
Great. And thank you for your question. That's a really good question.
I think if you're a judge as well and you end up judging both categories, and it's the same, somebody has put in exactly the same entry, they've done it.
Yeah. And I guess it's not going to, they're very different things, aren't they? One, you're looking at the size and the impact, and the other one, So you would want to draw out, even to the same questions, you would want to draw out different things, wouldn't you? Brilliant. Okay, so we have another question. So for the Young Planner Award, the guidance seems to be that in an entry you talk about experience from recent years rather than, say, being from 2022 onwards, like some of the other categories. Can one therefore put examples of work experience prior to 2022 for the Young Planner Award? If so, does older experience carry the same kind of weight as more recent experience? Is there a limit to how far back experience should go? That's talked about in an entry. Can I also ask a question? What's classed as young? Sorry. I'm out of this category, but you know.
No, not at all. It's 10 years
I do get asked that quite a lot. What makes you a young planner then? With the grey hairs, it's starting to appear on this slide.
And your kids.
and my kids. So it's 10 years post-chartership, if I'm not mistaken. So it's when you become chartered. And so you're early in your planning, official planning career in that respect. As far as I'm aware, Lucy might be able to answer this, but I think entries may make reference to careers as a whole, as well as particular pieces of projects or pieces of work. So I think you can draw upon some of the experiences you may have gained before you became a chartered planner and weave that into your responses, I think, because that's quite good to draw upon, where you've come from and how that sometimes helped you now into some of the things you're delivering at this stage in your career.
Anything you want to add to that, Lucy?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the official is 10 years post qualification, so you don't have to be chartered to be a young planner. So just so anybody in any category can apply to be a young planner. But yeah, doesn't have to. You don't have to just use your most recent experience. You can draw on the experience from previous years. But make sure it's relevant, make sure it's punchy, make sure it's interesting. And as Josh has been saying, passion goes a long way with these entries.
Tell us your story.
Yeah.
That telling yours back to the storytelling. Tell us your story, how you got there, why you've put your entry in this year, what made it. That it's all about, again, back to that storytelling.
Love storytelling. Okay, next question. So in relation to the right timing of an entry, for awards outside of individual categories, what considerations make the timing appropriate? Is that what either Catriona or Lucy?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
I think what's the right time to enter a project might be a way of rephrasing that.
Official is the right time to enter a project when you've got some outcomes that you can prove, whether it's a completed outcome or you've got something substantial that you can actually prove within the project. I know that's what the judges will be looking for when they're looking at the project categories.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, as far as I remember, I think it could be that the development obviously hasn't been started. It's just that you've achieved a planning permission, but it's why it may be a particularly challenging process that you've been up against, or that you've had to spend a lot of time working with local communities and investing time and things like that. So it's about the timing is about, it might be that development at the end of the day is not award winning, but the process up to getting permission is award winning.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between sort of making sure you put it in at the right time and thinking about what you're actually putting it in for.
Yeah.
So it's like a significant event in a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something.
Yeah.
I'll draw upon something. We were considering putting in as a local authority for, I think it was health and wellbeing or biodiversity category last year, but we're midway through a significant public realm project, which was urban greening, increasing the level of trees and planting in a town centre and play space, etc. Then we thought, actually, it's halfway through. Is it best for us to wait till we've completed the project fully on the ground? Yes, but now our thoughts are, well, actually, we're doing a piece of research around that public realm with the University of Birmingham. So my thinking is now in the future, when we've got a big data set, from an initial public realm project through to going all the way through to having, you know, data and engagement with the community. And then there's a narrative. Again, it comes down to story, what you're trying to tell for the category you're in, but also the scheme itself and what outcomes you've achieved from it. I think that's critical. You kind of know sometimes when the best time is, I think, to go for an award.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget to read the eligibility and all the criteria that will tell you exactly what it is that the judges will be looking for and why a project will be able to go forward. So projects completed in the 2 years prior to 2024, 1st of January. Permissions are for plans. So just ensure that you read the words, read the eligibilities. Yeah.
Mm.
And there's a lot of people asking questions about the young planners. So next one, regarding nominations for young planners, is it better to be written by yourself or someone else, i.e. your company stroke manager?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a hybrid approach sometimes works. So even if it is a nomination, I mean, for me, it was a nomination by my three managers, so to speak, but it was a combined effort in terms of writing it. I don't think it matters who it comes from. I think what matters is who you engage with in terms of putting it together. So whether you want to put it in from yourself or whether you want support from your managers to showcase, you know, this is what this individual young planner has been doing. I think there's no right or wrong answer. It's really what's best for the individual. It doesn't make a difference in terms of the judging criteria, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, and we have had circumstances where a manager has put in a young planner award for a young planner and they didn't tell them. And so it wasn't until much, it was much later down the process when they got called in. Yeah. And so it is, the combined effort is brilliant. You know, if someone wants to nominate you, then do let the young planner know.
Yeah, that's nicer, isn't it? Rather than you're shortlisted. Next question. Can a submission based on process stroke performance improvement be attractive enough when up against submissions based on a built development? Oh, that's a good question.
Depends on what category you put it in, because, you know, a lot of the performance measures are when you put one in for a team, how a consultancy is working or a team's working, small, large consultancies, legal teams. That's a good question. I mean, I think you have to be very careful what category you would be putting it in.
Yeah. Okay. And when you talk about submitting your best work for 22/23, does this mean projects that are live /current and not yet completed, or do you have to submit only projects that have been completed by the close of 2023 calendar year?
So again, it's in the criteria. Projects need to be sufficiently completed so that the outcomes can be demonstrated. That's really the bottom line. It's all about what the project's outcomes can be. So projects are built. What are the outcomes? What's happened? What is that thing that you are trying to demonstrate? Have those outcomes been completed?
Yeah, and so going in and measuring that you've got some data and stuff to say that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really important, because I have again had somewhere I have asked that question. So what, I can't actually judge that because I don't know what it's achieved.
Yeah.
And I think again that might be because it's just been submitted too early.
Brilliant. And for the Plan Making Award, is it helpful to reflect on things you could do better in hindsight and that upon reflection might not be best practice, but with the focus of the application being on the other areas that were outstanding, or should this be avoided? How honest should I be? That is the question.
Lessons learned are so valuable.
Yeah.
Again, back to this about, it's not, I guess I said good practice at the start, but it's just, I mean, I have made so many mistakes in my professional career, and I wouldn't be here if I hadn't shared them and learned from them.
Yeah.
And you know that as long as the overriding reason you've submitted in it is because of success, I don't see why you shouldn't. If there's a real valuable lesson tucked in there, then I don't see why you shouldn't put that in there. If it led to a really positive outcome, then why not?
Yeah, I like the sound of that straight away. You know, the fact that there will be a strong overriding positive element of best practice, but also I think it's quite quite strong to say, actually, we've learned this through the process, and it's helping us now to shape, the next plan, the next master plan, our next thinking. I think that's quite a nice thread potentially to run through.
Some honesty in it, isn't there?
Yeah. There is honesty. It's 1 o'clock, so this has actually flown by. There are a few questions that are outstanding, so I don't know if we can take them away, and if they're not answered here, we can email people back and just give them a short response from the team.
We can do that. There's one thing that I just wanted to mention, pull out, because it was the last question very, very quickly. It was around EDI sitting at the heart of our definition of planning awards. Somebody was looking for some tips for small planning consultancies. I mean, this isn't specific for small planning consultancies, but EDI definitely is something that should be woven in and out of every single answer. So try and understand, how EDI is affected within your team, in your project, in your plans. Really, really do think about that when you're writing your responses.
And we had a really good example last year with a consultancy that said that EDI, underpinned absolutely everything they did as an organisation, and then never gave any example of what that actually meant in practice. And it was really disappointing, because you're saying, where this is at the heart of what we do, and there was absolutely no evidence presented for that.
Yeah, again, it's back to the evidence, isn't it? And having that kind of making that statement, here's the evidence of where we've done it, and weaving that through, like we said.
What does that mean?
Yes, you'll be like, right, well, we've actually come to the end of our hour, so I'm going to say thanks so much for joining us, for everyone who's tuned in, and those amazing questions, there were quite a few. Well done. And thank you so much to our panelists, Joshua, Catriona, and Lucy as well, for joining us after we cried. And again, if you have any further questions about the awards, remember that you can email the RTPI at awards@rtpi.org.uk, and also visit the FAQ section on their website. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, and good luck.
And good luck.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.